All right. Good afternoon, Josh. How are you today?
Doing good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. So, I've got your resume here in front of me, and you have had a very impressive career working in the legal field, not only with the United States military representing the Army as a paralegal, but also in a private firm as well. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background working in the legal industry thus far?
So I started off as a paralegal in the Army, doing largely, well, almost exclusively criminal prosecution and criminal defense work.
Okay.
It was about half and half, um, and a smattering of like legal assistance, like wills, powers of attorney, uh, landlord-tenant issues, things like that. But from there, I got out of the army, worked for my father-in-law's business doing IT work, but then I went back and started working for a rec law firm doing AOB cases, third party insurance stuff. And illegal towing was a big part of it too, but
Yep.
their big chunk of stuff was the uh, the AOB cases.
Fantastic. Now, throughout your career, and I want to go back to your military career really quickly. You were supporting five different locations at that time, correct? Did I see five
Uh,
different offices?
In Korea, yes. I was the senior paralegal for the Pacific Rim Trial Defense Service, which had locations at five different places throughout the Pacific Rim.
Wow. Okay. Now, what was the biggest difference that you saw doing paralegal work with the military versus for the private firm that you work at right now?
I'd say with the private firm, they did a lot more different things. Like with the army, it's more compartmentalized. If you're in the military justice office, you're the prosecution. With legal assistance, it's more of that wills, powers of attorney, landlord, tenant, civil stuff where you're advising them what they should do. Sort of, well, not me, the attorneys would, but
Yeah.
and then there's a claims section, there's a blah blah blah, whichever types of things. And with like rec law firm, there's one firm where you do this insurance litigation, the illegal towing, and then there's some personal injury, there's
Okay.
collections. So I got a lot of experience doing a lot of more different things in that 1 year.
Fantastic. So, yeah, I love that you had the different exposure. Was part of your job with any of the two I wanna say I keep wanting to say companies, but it's not. With the Army or with the private firm, were you in charge of, like, managing the attorneys' calendars and being that Yep, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but yeah, definitely, big part of it, calendaring, making sure all their events are calendared, letting them know that, hey, this event's coming up, calendaring things like case management plans, so they know, hey, the court has this deadline for, you know, uh, discovery to be complete or whatever.
Yep,
Um, so yeah, it's a big part of all of them,
abs
honestly.
What would you say is one of your biggest accomplishments in your career thus far?
Oh, um, that would be definitely in the army. I know when at I was stationed at MacDill for a time, MacDill Air Force Base, Tampa here,
Mhm,
and I was working basically by myself. Our attorneys were up at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. I set
mhm.
up the legal office there, and I was pretty much a solo practitioner almost as a paralegal down here because I'd get all kinds of questions from the unit, and I'd have to find the answer. If it was like a regulatory standard or something like that, I'd have to find it myself and let them know, hey, this is the regulatory standard. Here's how you comply. As long as it wasn't actually a question of like interpreting something, like an attorney would have to do.
Yep, awesome, alright, that sounds good. Now, at this stage in your career, what is the most important thing to you about the next company that you work for?
Oh, it's it's a tie between ensuring I'm compensated well enough and longevity. I'd like to stay with someone. So it's like
Fantastic.
longevity and upward mobility
Okay.
because yeah, it's I'd like to stay somewhere, but I'd like to continue growing.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, thank you so much for allowing me to film a portion of this interview. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording the chat with you a little bit more if that sounds good.
Oh yeah, definitely.